As for Cisco, Jim, obviously that was not an issue. Hat trick with a beat on both the top and the bottom line and better than expected current quarter revenue guidance. Chuck Robbins talked about tariffs and guidance on Mad Money last night.
I'm proud of the team because last week, obviously, we got the indication that the tariffs were going to go to 25%. They did on Friday morning. Within 48 hours, our team had executed on everything we needed to execute on to take care of it. So it's behind us, and it's relatively immaterial at this point based on all the work our teams have done, and it's built into our guidance.
All right, Jim, so how are they doing this when so many players are in the crossfire, I should say, Huawei, Semis, Apple, and a bunch of other names?
They saw it coming. Now, only 3% of their business is China, but they saw China shifting away from Cisco, and they realized that this is for keeps. They kept very close touch with the president, with Washington, and they realized, look, we have no choice. We got to get the hell out of China. And they did. They're sourcing all over the globe, but not too much in China. I think they're the way of the future. If you look at that stock, what that stock is saying is, you know what? We figured it out. And by the way, this started, Chuck Robbins immediately recognized the resolve of this president. And he just shifted as fast as he could. And you heard what he said. You know, actually, on the conference call, he talked about, hey, you know what? We're going to 25 this weekend. I want to know that we're not going to have any exposure. Really rather amazing. But I do think that what has to happen is people have to do what Chuck did, because your numbers go higher if you do it.
So where are you now in terms of, well, let's read this bit on Huawei really quick. The U.S. and China remain locked in a trade dispute, as you know. The president ramping up his campaign against Huawei by declaring a national emergency over threats against American tech. His executive order authorizes the Commerce Department to block transactions involving information or communications tech that poses an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. Now, in response, Huawei issued a statement saying restricting it from doing business in the U.S. won't make the U.S. more secure or stronger. But Jim, there's a lot of commentary out today that the tougher element of this two-pronged approach is adding it to this so-called entity list, where U.S. companies would have to actually get a license to sell it critical technology. And that, I mean, if it cripples Huawei and cripples their 5G rollout, I mean, Tom Cotton tweeted, RIP, thanks for playing.
Yeah, I was shocked at that. This is more important than tariffs. This is going to put that. Look, they're a huge customer. Huawei's just a giant maw of Qualcomm, Broadcom, Skyworks. Everybody. I cannot believe this is tough. Huawei is a giant company, and a lot of our companies sell into them, and this does cut numbers instantly. Cuts numbers.
So you'd be watching what? Micron, Qualcomm.
Yeah.
They all sell. I mean, Qualcomm has a large deal. You know, yeah, it's an important customer for them. They're still in the midst, by the way, of renegotiating with them, of course, a la Apple in terms of, excuse me, a new agreement. But Jim, I mean, this is with one hand sort of reaching out to say, let's get back to talks, and the other just taking a baseball bat and whacking them around the back. I mean,
yeah.
To your point,
I mean, I got to tell you this.
If you recall ZTE and how we had that company conceivably on the precipice of failure as a result of similar kind of a ban for a while, that gives you a sense here as to the importance of this potentially for Huawei. Now, it doesn't mean it's happened as of yet, but it certainly could. And they rely on U.S. technology at this point, and certainly the chipsets that we just mentioned from a number of U.S. providers to power a lot of what they're planning on doing. This is more than a shot across the bow, isn't it?
No, this big. This is much bigger than tariff, because what it says is we're stopping their 5G leadership. We're not going to let our technology companies make them be ahead of us in 5G. And our companies are going to pay. But again, I mean, this is what Chuck Robbins was saying. Listen, if you sell into the Chinese, you're going to get hurt. If you rely on China, you're going to get hurt. These companies don't have any choice. What are they going to do? Say no to Huawei? It's a gigantic customer. But it is a surprise. And you mentioned Micron. That stock's been going down from 42 to 36. Qualcomm's got a lot to give up. We know the stock with David was at 58 when you broke the news about Apple. So you're going to see those companies come down, their stocks come down. And that's right. Those numbers have to come down, so those stocks should go lower.
I still don't quite understand exactly what the plan would be. I mean, there is not a U.S. provider of sort of the backbone services of creating the networks themselves with the infrastructure you need. We don't have one in the U.S. any longer. Lucent's gone.
No.
Cisco does what it does, Jim, but not in the same way, right? So it's Ericsson. What is it? I mean, if you're, who are you supposed to rely on beyond a very small group of names that do this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Ericsson is much more expensive and not as efficient. Nokia is a company if you rely on, you're not going to be ahead. Those are the two other players. The Europeans don't seem to understand the gravity of the situation. I think that the president has just decided, okay, listen, we're going to be so unilateral on this one. We think these guys are outlaws. They think Huawei's an outlaw. Huawei is the company probably has the most momentum of any telecommunication company in the world. So you're basically saying, what, our companies are not going to play with the juggernaut, and they're going to. Wow, I don't know. Again, numbers come down right off this.
Yeah,
numbers come down. Look at those shipments. Look at how strong Huawei is. By the way, in China, they're trying to steer as much business to Huawei as they can. So it was a honeypot, David. It's not a honeypot anymore. Not a couple hours ago.
Well, those are the actual smartphones where we compete, where there are many competitors. But I'm talking about building the guts of the network to actually carry all of the information.
My question, Jim, is what would be a comparable response? What's our juggernaut? Is it Apple? And what do we do if Europe, which clearly doesn't look like they're going to do this, play along with our strategy on Huawei?
Yeah, it's amazing that Europe won't play along because they should steer all their business toward Nokia and Ericsson. Those are two companies that could use the customers. I agree. I mean, look, we don't know what's going to happen here. We don't know whether this one can be repealed. This is not a shot across the bow. This is like, okay, guys, we're not playing. The quote from the senator, we're not playing. And we're willing to take the hit, even with our best companies. So you mentioned Apple. They're the only one that I guess that we could say they can retaliate with, but they would be cutting their nose off to spite their face, given how much business. They have 2 million developers in China. 2 million developers. That's right from Tim Cook's office. And those people are going to get hurt.